Hello everyone. Hopefully all of my tech is cooperating. Ran a couple minutes behind trying to make sure I was getting all of the functionality working correctly, and maybe I did. Hopefully you can hear me. um, yeah, it's been that kind of a technical day. The small good news is that today's focus is going to be a little bit shorter. We are going to keep things nice and tight. I promised that we were going to do a lot more time lapse and bits and pieces of updates to keep things rolling, and that's the tempo that we're going to go with. So today is going to be pretty short. I've got a nice little time lapse of some progress that we've made between last week and this week. A lot of what I was doing was around game balance, which is a lot of me going which is not the best streaming content. So, without much further ado, let's jump over to a live stream where we do some work on our RoleCenter. Fun stuff. All right. Okay, so hopefully that worked well and everyone could hear that. That was the code side of the progress that we've made in the past week or so. As you saw in the video, hopefully, we went ahead and created some new adjustments to the role center for the system administrator. Some useful things like just being able to see an overview of players. The game isn't active ticking along, so no wealth values are updating. But if you caught that in the time lapse there, we're trying to look cross company at a flow field, and flow fields don't work cross company because when you say calc fields, it's running in the context of your user. So we couldn't just pull from that. So the solution on that, which isn't the best for performance, but I think it'll be okay for our use case, is that anytime the GL is updated, that affects the balance of the players. So we just update this table. It's not optimal. We'll see if it causes deadlocking or other weird things. But we also did a couple of other cross-company little barrier jumping things, like, for example, the job queue overview. Now, as a system administrator, I can see for all of the player companies that are in the system by company name, what is the status of their heartbeat job queue. So that way I can keep a better eye on, is the system running for everybody? And I can see here, I tripped one up on purpose, we can see that this one has gone into error state. So I know that if I go into my Alpha Mega Corps company, I will go find that job queue that has malfunctioned. So that's pretty useful. And we also did some tidy up to be able to see an overview of the market. Lots of little syntactical sugar things need to be fixed up here as well. Some captions that are bonkers and whatnot, but we were fixing up the RoleCenter to make a little more sense for the system administrator to be able to see things like some of the snapshot pieces of info and all these things that we have underlying underneath all the data, but there was no way to get to it in a useful sort of way. So that was, I think, the main thrust of our programmatical change. We'll probably do some additional adjustments and clean up to some more of the role centers. And I've been starting to tinker with some of the mechanics. So we're going to need to address the fact that when we create a new player's company, they're still missing items. And we have a variety of different bots that are still not viable yet, like the assembly and manufacturing. So we've got some work to do. But I think based on our first play test through that we had done on a few different earlier streams, we've cleaned up some of the different bits and pieces. The role centers were really missing some info. I know we still have some info to update for our players in the role centers. For that as well. For example, we can't currently see the prospects or the research, and there's not a good way to jump into the activity log. So incorporate into next week's little time lapse. We'll have a little bit more role center adjustment. And hopefully by that point I'll have all of the item list revised and fixed up. And that's the master item list, not the per player one. And that is one of the fundamental building blocks we need for testing. So for those of you who are following along with the stream and want to join in on the alpha test, well, good news, we're coming up on that pretty shortly. So that'll be good. So time lapse next week will be role center fix up, a little bit more cleanup. There's a deadlock issue in the snapshots that we identified in a past stream. That's just a simple issue here in our code unit, just a bad design thinking. When you write code live with no particular plan, that happens. So here in our player heartbeat, I believe, not snapshot capture, which is hooked onto our player heartbeat, we're updating the global rankings. But that runs for every player company, so go figure, this little table gets modified by all of them, and that deadlocks. It's a bad design. So we'll get that cleaned up, because that's one of the few places where the event log really, the job queues really tend to fail. and we'll tidy up the player role center, and then we'll need to branch this off. We'll create a new instance of this. It'll be our alpha test branch, and I will run that as a server for the alpha testers to start to play with. And we'll start working on version 2, where we'll do some crazy stuff with assemblies, and we'll start to introduce some of the new researches that I've been working on under the hood, and we'll start to map out the much more complex logistical challenge of how on earth are we going to get bots to play nice with the warehousing and assembly logic system. So there's lots more to come. I will get these changes all checked in. For those of you who are enjoying following the GitHub, you'll be able to see all the bits and pieces. Many of these things are techniques that are standard for what I'm used to, but someone new to BC might find it interesting to look at how we do flow fields and flow filters and calculate things based on different values. What are some of the ways that we can get around the company barrier? So there are some interesting things that'll be under the hood there, and that'll be excellent. So until next week, I'm going to keep plugging along on some of the game mechanics and setup, and we'll have some probably aim for a 15-minute, a longer time lapse that'll cover a lot of stuff. So trying to finalize and clean up a bunch of things. So I will see you guys next Monday. We kept it short today. All right. Take care, everybody.